Let's talk tax professionals today. I want to share why we made the decision to pay someone else to prepare our taxes instead of doing it ourselves, because let's be honest, you can do it yourself. It's not that hard. I'll also share how we found the company that we chose to work with, what the process is actually like working with them, and what the benefits are that we see with this particular company. Also, if you're new here, my name is Nikki. I share content all about how to make your life better and easier as you move up in your career, especially as your finances and available resources change. Prior to using a professional, I was always the one to prepare my husband's and my taxes. And honestly, I just used TurboTax like a lot of people in the US. The problem was we were starting to get to a point where we were investing a lot more, we were buying a house, and really the catalyst for this was we changed states. So we moved from Chicago to Atlanta. And with that move came different withholdings for the different states. And there was also a big complication with when my husband and I each listed our address changing, to the point where we think that we over withheld taxes for Illinois compared to Georgia. It was a whole mess. I think we actually overpaid by a couple $1,000s in taxes, but it was kind of hard to tease out what happened. Overall, it was just a really frustrating tax season. I actually ended up redoing our taxes with multiple free tax softwares, and every time I was getting different answers, and I was so frustrated. We were also getting to the point where our jobs were switching to have more variable compensation than we had in the past, so it was getting harder to predict how much money we were gonna have to pay when tax season actually came around. And I was just kind of done. I didn't want to be spending so much of my time doing our taxes, redoing them, making sure they were right, trying to get our withholding right for the year. I just wanted someone to tell me what to do. In addition to wanting someone to help with our taxes, we were starting to think about wanting to establish a relationship with some sort of financial professional that could help with investing advisement or retirement advisement at some point, even if we weren't ready to take on those services just yet. So that really gets us into how we even found our company to work with. I started this search with asking family and friends and even people that I worked with who they used for tax preparation. And I'll be honest, not a lot of them used someone. Most people we know just use one of the free or low cost tools out there to do it yourself. As I started looking at the company options out there, I did a lot of Googling and looked at reviews, but to be honest, they just weren't that helpful. There was a crushing amount of options, and I couldn't tell if the amount of reviews was relevant or not, and like the good or bad experiences. It was kind of hard to see patterns in people's experiences. So again, I just didn't really know where to start. A big ground rule that I had was that I didn't want to use a company that leveraged temps for the tax preparation process. And this is no offense to people that like to use services like H&R Block. I just wanted someone that had deeper knowledge of the tax code system, because again, I wanted to have the option to expand the services that I use in the future, and I wanted someone that could look at the holistic picture of my financial portfolio. After having some trouble with Google, I decided to ask a local Facebook group. There's a few that are local to my town, and I usually get pretty good service recommendations from that group. I put in the specific things that I was looking for in a tax company, and I got a few recommendations that seemed pretty solid. After doing some Googling of that narrowed down list of companies, I reached out to one, and they ended up being the company that we chose. To get started with them, they did a video consultation with us. And for me, this was really helpful because it was a little bit more flexible with my husband and I's schedule. We were both working from home at the time, and so we could schedule a quick consultation over lunch without having to worry about drive time. But there's a lot of people I know out there that would rather meet in person with a tax professional or have a phone consultation. They don't care about video. And so that's something to keep in mind as you're looking at tax professionals. Just make sure that they work the way that you would appreciate. During that initial consult, we talked about what we were looking for. For us, this was basic tax preparation and aligning our withholdings based on our projected income. And also, if they had any recommendations about 401k contributions and things like that, we wanted to be able to talk through that as well. The next step on the company side was to actually do our taxes for the year, and then they would get into any sort of recommendations for the coming year. For that year's taxes, they really just needed all of the normal documentation that you would need to do it yourself. So your W-2s, receipts of any big donations, all of that type of stuff. And the way that they collected that was actually through an online portal. So again, this really is where it gets into how you want to interact with your tax professional. I don't want to have to call someone if I don't have to. I'm such a millennial that way. And I also don't want to have to go to an office and like bring someone actual forms. I wanted to just be able to drag and drop it into a folder, close it and forget about it. And that's what my tax company let me do. After we had all of that documentation uploaded, I think it took them a couple of weeks to do the tax preparation. It was their busy season, so I understand. They scheduled a consult with us right before we did the final submission, just to make sure nothing looked off in what they prepared. It was very straightforward and easy. It was maybe like a 20-minute virtual meeting where we got to ask some other questions, and then we were good to go. I actually don't have the cost written down, but I wanna say it was around $350 for the full service. I think their base package at the time was about $250, but we were a little bit more complicated with the number of investment accounts that we have. We actually still get a lecture from them about just like having too many accounts, which I'm starting to understand more of why it was such a headache for me when I did it. I digress. But anyways, that was the price I paid back in 2022. Now that we've used them a couple of times, it's actually really easy to kick off the whole tax season with them. They proactively email us with a link to the portal where we drop all of our documents. And then once we submit everything, that's their signal to start preparing our taxes. And then we do the consultation once the taxes are done. Now let's talk benefits, again, beyond just not having to do your own taxes, which is a massive benefit in itself. One of the most obvious ones has been having a really good estimate of what we needed to withhold during the year. And I'm gonna get really specific on some numbers here. The year that broke me and taught me that I needed to hire a professional, we paid out of pocket about $20,000 for tax day. That was federal and state stuff combined, but it was so out of whack. And the next year, we still had a pretty big tax bill. I wanna say it was somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000, which is just more than you want to do. So we had a good sit down with our tax person and said, we don't care if we over withhold, we don't want a tax bill. We had an idea of what the range of our bonuses could be, and we decided to do all of our planning based on if we got the most amount of variable compensation possible. Now this year, we actually had the opposite problem. We got a massive check back because we way over withheld because one of our bonuses was a lot lower than what we expected. And that's fine. I know that a lot of people would complain and say,
I wouldn't want to over withhold because I could have invested that money.
But at this point, we were so sick of actually burning through my bonus to pay our tax bill because of how the timing lined up that we preferred to have the over withholding. So I think I actually got a massive check back, again, like probably $15,000 returned to me this year, which was just great. It felt like I was getting two bonuses at once. Because of some changes in our jobs, our compensation is a bit more predictable now, and I don't think we're gonna have those big swings in terms of what our tax bill would be. And again, our tax professional is helping us dial that in. And it was also really nice because when my husband changed jobs this year, we were able to give them a quick call and say, this is what we project the income to be. How should we adjust our W-2s at this point in time when we're starting this new job? And that gives me a lot more comfort to just, again, be a little bit better prepared going into this tax season. Another benefit is that we have someone else pushing us to max out our 401k. Now, objectively, this is something that we should all be trying to do. You get a tax benefit from putting money away in retirement, but it's so easy sometimes to overlook it and say, well, I would really like to be able to go on this trip or to put this money here or do whatever, instead of truly maxing out your 401k. In the past, my aim was to max out my contribution to the point where it would be fully matched. I wasn't trying to max out my contribution overall relative to what the federal limit would be. But having a professional explain to me the benefits of maxing it out overall was really helpful. This year, I ended up taking that advice and taking my contribution up from the 6% where I get my full company match to the percentage that allows me to fully max out my 401k contribution. We also get suggestions on various strategies with our taxes. So about 2 years ago, our tax guy recommended a strategy that I had never heard of, which was buying unused Georgia film credits. And hopefully I don't botch this explanation, but essentially, because we're seeing a lot more things happening in the film industry here, the state creates tax credits, but sometimes those movie studios or like TV studios don't use up all of those credits. And so they will sell them to people at a discount. So they might sell you $10,000 of tax credits and you pay like $9,200 for them. And you essentially profit $800. We didn't end up being able to use it because the year that we actually tried to do it, none were for sale. I guess like more people have caught on to the strategy, or maybe the studios are using more, I don't know. But still, the fact that that option was even on the table, I never would have known about it if it weren't for having a professional that looks at this stuff every day. And last year, our tax guy actually talked to us about potentially using art as donation vehicles to help kind of offset our tax bill. And the fact that someone suggested that I purchase art as donations really made me feel like I made it in life, but that's kind of a separate thing. The moral of the story is not the specific strategies that he recommended, but the fact that there are way more options on the table than I previously would have thought about. And it's not just options that would just benefit me, it's also options that potentially could benefit charities that are really important to me. So I really am excited to keep working with this company in the future and refining our strategy so that we are, making the decisions that work best for us. Now, obviously having someone prepare my taxes is a big time savings, but it's a one-time time savings. And there's other services that I employ that save me time throughout the year, every single week or every single month. And I want to share those with you. So check out this video here if you're interested, and I will see you in my next video.